My name is Tom O'Donnell, and I've had the great privilege of serving as your moderator since 1967 by annual election. The job of moderator has, as most of you know, two aspects. One is to preside fairly and impartially at the town meeting, the annual meeting or special meetings, and to try to get the business of the meeting done in a reasonably expeditious way. The second, and just as important part of it, is to make appointments to town committees of a wide variety of talented and interested people who make recommendations to the selectmen and to the town meeting, and without whose involvement and talent and wisdom, Hingham could not function as it does. Early in my time as moderator, I figured out that unless I reached out, the appointments I made were likely to be circumscribed by my own acquaintanceship, which, although fairly wide, was not, in my opinion, wide enough. So I began the custom of having an open house in which any citizen of the town was invited to come down and talk about interest in town appointed positions. And a great many of the appointments I've made, not all of them, have been from people whom I have met in that way. Interestingly, a few years later, the selectmen said, "Could we do this with you as well?" And I said, "Wonderful." And now for almost 30 years, the selectmen and I have had several meetings in May in which we talk to people and ascertain their interests and figure out how we can make them more effective contributors to the life of the town. My closing thought is that we have a wonderful town here, but it really all depends on you and people like you who are willing to come forward and give generously of their time. And I think it's important for all of us to try to maintain that great tradition for many years to come. Thank you.
Mr. Manning, 2 minutes.
I was a career prosecutor and retired as Deputy Chief of the Attorney General's Criminal Bureau. My duty is to return integrity to the office of Town Moderator. Just before the special town meeting in August, I introduced myself to Tom O'Donnell as his former neighbor, Sunday paper boy, and babysitter for the family, and asked if I could be called early in the proceedings. He asked what I had to say. I told him that my legal research proved beyond any doubt that the school committee had no legal right to name a municipal building they did not own, and the legislature never gave the power or authority to them. He replied, town council said they could. I responded, the legislation and case law was conclusive and town council was wrong. He told me to see town council. Council showed me his letter to the selectmen, which reflected that the board could call a special town meeting, but nothing about the propriety of the school committee action. When the meeting began, I stood at a microphone and waited to be recognized. After an hour and a half had passed, the loudspeaker announced, somebody has been waiting to speak for a long time. I waved from behind the microphone. The moderator let everyone else speak. After no one was left, the moderator announced, I will entertain a motion to end the discussion and for a vote. The loudspeaker, there is one man waiting to speak. I waved with both arms. The moderator repeated his announcement and the motion carried. After the vote, I thanked Mr. O'Donnell for ignoring me. He said he never saw me. I told him that he was the only person in the gymnasium that didn't see me.
Are you finished, sir? Thank you. And now we have some questions. The first question is, what is your opinion about Hingham's requirement of a quorum of 300 voters? Should it be retained, and why or why not? Mr. Manning, you may go first, and you have 1 minute.
The quorum requirement is quite specific. However, when that amount was adopted, the town was much smaller than it presently exists. I believe that it should be larger to require a greater number to participate in town government.
Thank you. Mr. O'Donnell?
We've had a quorum of 300 for a great many years. Vernon is right, the town was smaller. The size of the meetings has not grown, however. It's remained quite large. The first night of town meeting, often 600, 800, 1,000 or more. On the second and third nights, usually we don't go beyond 3 nights. Getting the crowd there and getting a quorum has proven somewhat time-consuming. So while I think that the 300 is defensible, it would really impair the functioning of the open town meeting if we were to increase it. If we were to reduce it to, say, 200, which people might think is not a good thing to do, the effect of that would be to begin to start the second and third night of the meeting somewhat sooner than we now are able to do so.